one of the biggest challenges that prevents really smart people from leveling up is teenage brain. I know that already. I've heard this before. You might get to a certain level at a certain point and you're like, I'm really good, but things are constantly changing. Things are constantly evolving. There's always an opportunity to amplify. If anyone gets in that mindset, rather than thinking this is something I know, shift that mindset into how can I get better at this? There's always an opportunity to improve. And if you can't see it, you just might have a blind spot.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode. As always, I am joined by my friend Jody Grundon. So, Jody, welcome to the show as always.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Good to see you again.
Yes, for sure, for sure. And then today's guest is Kenny Harper with Growth Amplifiers. And so we're going to talk about a topic that comes up a lot, especially with our clients and with our listening base, is talking about scaling. And Kenny has a system about scaling without burning people out. So I'm really excited to talk about that because I know scaling is a hard process, and a lot of owners and companies where just by the time you get to the point where you want, like everybody's just so exhausted that they're done. So very excited to learn about how to do it the right way. So welcome to the show, Kenny. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to connect and engage with your audience, engage with you two gentlemen. My background, I initially was inspired to be a creative when I went to a Metallica concert when I was 14 years old. My cousin was working at a bar. He knew a DJ. They got backstage passes to Metallica Snake Pit 1992. I saw these guys on stage. I was blown away. So then I was in bands, playing in bands, being creative. Then I found out it's kind of hard to make a living playing in a band. And so I channeled my outlet to marketing, creativity, things of that nature, and started going to school for it. I went to University of North Florida, graduated marketing, multimedia, worked for different advertising agencies, working on large accounts, anywhere from like Winn-Dixie, which is a grocery store here in the Southeast, to I got an opportunity to work on a project for Barbie, which was pretty cool. And I kind of hit the ceiling there, started my own firm about a decade ago, and initially started working as a marketing agency. Over time, I've shifted and now more am an advisor consultant. And I'm helping firms that are doing good already and they're growing, simplify and scale. Now is a time more than ever with the rise of technology. It's needing to think different of how you approach business because you can't do the same thing we've always done and expect to get the same outcome. Things are changing. It's time to adapt.
All right, love it. So, why don't you tell us? So obviously you have a system in place, and so oftentimes when our guests come on and have a system, there's steps to that system, or there's certain ways to approach it. So let's start at the beginning. So let's start at the beginning of your system. Like, where does it all start?
I'm going to pivot real quick and
Okay.
say uh, what I'm seeing the challenges are and why the system came into fruition in the first place.
Perfect.
Yeah,
So,
let's hear it.
worked in different marketing agencies myself. So I see how they work. I've ran my own marketing agency. I've worked with accounting firms, CPA firms, tax professionals. A lot of the times, the thought is everyone's needs are different. We need to do things custom. We need to work with this account different than that account, than that account. And that creates a challenge. It creates the challenge to scale. What a lot of people think is I can't have a system, a customized way of doing something, or a standardized way of doing something because everything needs to be custom. So, what I'd want people to consider is there is a standard process that most people go through when working with your business, with working with your agency. And that can be systemized. And by systemizing that process, establishing that framework, then you can simplify and scale. So the framework that I just put out there, I've got it on my new book, The Amplified Advisor. You can go to growthamplifiers.com/book and get a free copy. I'm giving free copies digital and there's audio too. If you want to check it out, it is on Amazon. Because I'm on a mission. I see right now there are some people that have built really successful companies, and technology is threatening it. Technology is threatening them. The rise of AI, what is becoming popular, especially for either accountants, things being automated, or for creatives, tools that are being able to create websites, videos, you name it, within just a few prompts. What needs to happen is we need to shift from being the commoditized service provider to the advisor that better understands what our clients' needs and bigger picture of their goals, and then help them get to achieve their goals. It's a shift of how you're engaging with your clients. So I'll take a pause there because I didn't even answer your question, but I wanted to preface why this system is in place. Thank you for humoring me.
No, so basically, with growth, and we're big advocates on growing through processes, growing through technology. Really having 80% of what we do pretty much systemized, and 20% pretty snowflake to give the consultant basically a variety of things that they can pivot on and go different directions with. And it sounds like what you're saying is with marketing agencies, we probably should have been doing it all along, but now we've got an opportunity to really hone in on it because we've got a great tool that can help us. That tool is AI, various varieties of AI and so forth, that can really help us get to that next stage. And so growth is really developing those processes and then advising upon the processes. Am I getting what you're putting down there, Kenny?
Yes, it really is shifting the relationship. There's a book that just came out. It's not my book, but it's a good book. The transformation economy, and really talking about the importance of we've got to think about how can we change this client that's coming to us with this challenge. They have something that they want. It's no longer enough to just say, I'm going to give you the little thing that you asked for. We got to think about what is the bigger picture. How can we help this person, this team, this company transform to get to where they want to go? And it creates a shift in culture from the owner, the leaders, and all the way down to the people who are doing the execution. I think it's important to begin infusing a coaching environment within your business, within your culture, within your team, helping people see things differently, ask better questions, and so they start taking new actions to achieve new results.
So with that, one of the questions that I have is, how often is it a training issue versus just a people issue, right? Because I think, looking at the accounting industry first and thinking about what we do is when we're trying to find consultants and we're trying to find CFOs, it's definitely a very unique personality trait within the finance world and the accounting world. Like a lot of accountants just want to deal with the books, don't want to deal with anything other than just like the very structured environment, don't want to do the consulting thing. So what about in the marketing world? Is that pretty true as well? Is that like you're having to find the different people, or is it something where the people already have the skill set, we just need to train them to have the conversations?
It's a little bit of both to answer your question. So, coming from the marketing side, I used to go to a lot of marketing conferences, speak in marketing groups, and that was the wheelhouse that I was, raised and grew up in. And then I started to work with more accounting firms around the rise of the pandemic, because prior to that, I was working with health and wellness businesses, and they were shutting down their advertising spend, and the accountants were thriving with doing things like PPP loans. So I started to help a couple of firms say, I could put on some webinars for you that would be helpful for your clients. And then I realized that, hey, accountants typically, we're trying to serve the same mission. We're trying to help our clients become more profitable so that they can build a business that helps them live the lifestyle they want. They just play a different instrument. And so I started to go to more accounting conferences and events and connect with them. And to get to the root of your question, I did see there are different personas, different profiles, different people. And some people are more introverted, even in the marketing space. They may even do things that look like they're extroverted, but they're more introverted in some cases. They like being behind the scenes. This is the same thing for accountants. There are some that are more introverted and prefer being behind the scenes, and there's some that like to have client face. They like to be more engaged with clients, to be more proactive, to help people see things in a different light. So there are different personas that you need to make sure you've got the right person in the right seat, taking the right action. But you can still even coach the people behind the scenes to help them see things through a different lens, to have them ask better questions, to cultivate a coaching culture so that they become more of someone who solves problems, who understands the bigger picture. So that mindset shift can happen regardless. How it happens with client engagement, you probably need to find the person that has that personality. It's just naturally their thing. Because if you can't change someone's natural personality, you can train the coaching behavior, you can train how to ask for things and give someone a foundation, but it's working uphill to try to change their personality overall.
Mhm. So you're stretching them out of their comfort zone, and if you stretch them too long, they'll probably leave and find something they're more comfortable with, right? It's kind of what we'll find if you
I've
prolong that person out, right?
I've come to find, and I was a little bit surprised at first because I initially was under the impression that you could teach someone new skills and they could rise to the occasion. But I've come to find out there are some people that just don't want to do it. They're not interested in doing it,
Yeah.
and they do their job really well. They do the thing that they're supposed to do really well, but they don't want to have that client engagement. They don't want to be out there engaging in that way. And if they don't want it, then they're probably not going to be successful in it.
Right. Yeah, we
Now,
tell people all the time that you can be a great accountant, but that doesn't mean you're going to be a great CFO, because an accountant is heads down doing the work, looking historically. A CFO is taking that information and looking forward, and it's a really different mindset. And if you're not comfortable with that mindset, we can't just automatically promote you to a CFO and say, "Hey, here's your next level." Good luck, because more than likely they'll bow out eventually. We want there to be a final mindset, whether, hey, that maybe that person, the highest they're going to get is a controller level, where they're always looking backward, but they're taking more responsibility over a financial statement. And so versus the CFO who's looking forward. So it's more or less finding different ways to capitalize on that person, right? Versus pushing them into a field that they're doomed for, from the very beginning.
You've probably heard of James Clear's best-selling book, Atomic Habits.
Mhm.
And what I like about that book, it talks from the beginning. That's the first thing that you should probably do if you're trying to change your habits is really change your identity, how you think about yourself. And you need to be real. Am I this type of person that enjoys doing this, that can learn these skill sets, that wants this? Am I going to work to shift how I'm going to show up? Or if not, then you can call a spade and not force it. And then do the thing that you do well and do it really well. So I concur.
I think what I find too is that the amount of energy you spend on doing stuff that you don't enjoy is just so much more, right? Like if I'm again, I'm an accountant but I struggle in the details, and that's part of it's my job that I just don't love. So when I spend 2 or 3 days like reading financial statements and writing stuff on it and just being very technical, like I'm so much more exhausted after those days where I spend like 2 to full days just talking to people and just like talking about their businesses and learning more about their business. I feel energized walking away from it. So I think that's the hardest part about trying to fit someone into a role they're not fit for, is that their energy is zapped and they don't love what they do every day. And I think that it comes down to like, you really have to at least enjoy what you're doing. And we've all been in roles where it was just not the right fit. And it's like, it's just by the end of it, you're like, man, this is not what I should be doing right now. And if you aren't happy, you're grumpy around your family, your nights are harder because you're just recovering from what you did all day. So I think that's the biggest thing is you want your people to be in roles where they really are satisfied and that they feel like they're very strong at. And I think it's where it comes down to for me.
I think that's a great insights, Jamie. And I think we're on the same page overall. There are some people that have that outgoing personality perspective. Now, I did mention that coaching culture could go for all parties, and I just want to shine a light on that, how that might look. I was working with a CPA firm who had a team of people. They were good at being able to do their job, but the owner was really just stressed out because she felt like she was having to just always put out fires and always manage all of these things because the workers were coming to her with the problems and saying, this is the problem, this needs to be done. And so very simply just said, we need to think about how to coach people so they start asking questions differently and start coming with solutions, or at least ideas, potential ideas that could be done. And so they can do that internally between themselves. They can do that before they come to a conversation. And that is something that they're very savvy. They know their stuff. They just haven't made that habit of, let me think about this differently, as a way that they've operated prior. They're used to getting told, this is what your objective is, get it done. And so by changing that and putting that coaching culture in place, what ended up happening is their team started asking the right questions and starting leading with ideas and solutions, and reduce the amount of questions and challenges that were really bottlenecking the owner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had that kind of a similar experience with coaching. So when we started from the very beginning, we've always had a redundancy with coaching. So if there was a CFO on the account, there's also like a senior level accountant sitting in the wings, assisting as needed, bringing up information, as the conversation was going. But really that their job was really to listen and to hear. And what happened was, over time, that person would start asking the same questions or mimicking what I was doing, so they're really learning from that experience without actually going through and taking a test and doing, the basic stuff. They were learning from example. And we brought that through the entire process to where we try to keep a redundancy factor at some point with different conversations, to where eventually, that person who had never spoke in front of anybody before, let alone one-on-one with an owner of a company, an entrepreneur or whatever. Now they sit very comfortable in that seat because they've been through it. They've heard what's going on. They understand all those barriers, kind of their mental barriers kind of are gone, and they can kind of relax a lot better, and then they can do it. They can lead those meetings. But we also found that in order for them to be successful in those meetings, we have a pre-meeting with them. And that pre-meeting is just simply going through, hey, here's the idea. Here's what I'm seeing from these financials or whatever, the forecast or whatever we're talking about. What do you see? Have that conversation, and then just say, hey, make sure that you ask them that question, or I'm going to ask you that question in the meeting. Be ready for it. And so then when we go into that meeting, they're ready, they're prepared. They go through it. They'll ask the questions, and they get a lot of confidence with it. And it really just helps reinforcing. And if you do it over and over and over and over again, it becomes second nature, to where eventually, you don't have to be at the meeting anymore. You're bowing out. The customer knows you very well, knows the senior very just equally as well, super comfortable around them. They've been giving advice throughout the whole thing. And if you have to miss that meeting for whatever reason, that person can, instead of rescheduling, that person can hop right in and conduct that meeting in a very similar manner in which you would. And so that's kind of been the way that we've taught upward or coached upward with our team. Kind of curious if you can kind of critique that. What do you think about that? Are we doing the right thing? Are we doing the wrong thing? Do we just get lucky with the people that we had and they were very coachable? What's your thoughts on that?
I think overall, number one, you are the guest on the Growth Amplifiers podcast. And if you haven't checked out that interview, it'd be worth checking out because Jody, you've built an amazing business, and your story is really maybe under listened to if you haven't heard his story. It's pretty impactful.
Do that.
And your thought leadership is great. So coaching up people when you're having those conversations, I think you're right on point. What's working for you is you're getting people involved. I think your hiring process was probably really a good start in the first place. You're finding the right people up front. You're bringing the right people in the door. If you didn't have the right people in the door, it would be hard to get, have them elevate up. But you're
Sure.
getting them involved in the process, helping them see around the corner helping them understand what success looks like so that they're being kind of trained on the job and can build those habits. That's just really cool to see that you're not throwing people out into the dark, hoping they figure it out. You're helping them see the process and then coaching them into success. So I think that's the right mindset.
No, yeah, I definitely, as someone who's been through that process as both an employee and now on the flip side of it with getting to help train people working within our environment, think it's a very strong way to do it. And I think it does start with the hiring process. And I think the hiring process is really good because I think you don't want your hiring process to be so wide and so crazy that like you don't know that you're looking for the perfect candidate and there's like 10 things that make a perfect candidate. I think what it comes down to is really understanding like what are those one or two things we need. And I think the biggest thing that Jody already kind of mentioned is just the ability to solve problems. Is like we need people that can solve problems and come in and solve those problems for their clients, solve those problems for their team. And that just makes it really easy to train those type of people into those roles. So with that said, you've already mentioned, having systems in place. Then you mentioned having people that can level you up in terms of the services you're providing. Are there any steps for missing outside of those couple of things when it comes to scaling without stress?
So I'm going to walk through a little bit of this framework and what I
Awesome.
want to entertain people. What I'd want to have people think about, one of the biggest challenges that helps or that prevents really smart people from leveling up is teenage brain. I know that already. I've heard this before, right? As teenage brain, I have teenagers. Sometimes they tell me that, I know, Dad, we got to humble ourselves and realize no one can achieve mastery forever. You might get to a certain level at a certain point and you're like, I'm really good, but things are constantly changing. Things are constantly evolving. There's always an opportunity to amplify. So if anyone gets in that mindset, I know this already, rather than thinking this is something I know, shift that mindset into how can I get better at this? How can I level up in this one spot? How can I do this one element even better than I'm doing now? There's always an opportunity to improve. And if you can't see it, you just might have a blind spot. So real quick on that, the two boys I have, they both go to jiu-jitsu, right?
Oh, nice.
And if you go to jiu-jitsu class, you can watch the instructor, you can see what they're supposed to do, maybe even know how to do it. But does that mean you're going to be really good at jiu-jitsu? Typically not. You'd have to practice that. You'd have to continually practice at it, and you'd have to sharpen the saw so that you're achieving the higher and higher levels, eventually to a mastery level. So first things first, walking through the steps of the framework. The first step is really understanding and getting fueled up. What is the bigger vision that the company or the business owner is trying to accomplish? And really understanding what that is. Creative agencies, accountants sometimes get so focused on what someone came in, what service they've asked for, the immediate thing, they haven't taken the time to really look at what that big picture is. Why is that important to that person? And understanding that person's motivation. So just taking that first step, diving in deeper and coming in from a more relationship, understanding the vision is an important step.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think that's we talk about all the time. Like you really have to understand the person you're working with and their path in order to really help them grow.
So once you understand what their vision is and you understand what they want, why it's important to them. It's helping them see the big picture of how you can help them. Far too many people will say, we can provide this service, but not help them see how they can take where they're at and help them get to where they want to go. They can help with that transformation. Don't assume that the people you're connecting to will connect the dots and know all the things you can help them with. How many times have you lost business because you didn't explain the things of how you can help people with? So they went and said, oh, this person helped me out with this. Very early on in the relationship, helping them see how you can help them with that transformation, and then continue to share with them over time so they don't lose that, they don't forget that. So the next step is to properly diagnose. Now, chances are, as I go through these steps, you're going to be like, yeah, I kind of know some of these things. This kind of things what you do. It's easy to not do this and then think I've got it all. So don't fall for a teenage brain. Really take the time to diagnose someone's big picture. What is working? What is not working? What's important to them? What are their priorities? When you fully can diagnose someone's situation, you can help ensure that you're focusing on the right things first that would have the most impact. So it's an important part to do that diagnosis that can help out with sales, because you're better understanding what's really important and where their problem spots are. It can also help out with retention, because you can really help them see things that they may have gone blind to. So you diagnose, right? And then prescribe. What do you think a common challenge is when people, let's say a creative shop, tends to prescribe something?
Jody, I'll let you guess first.
They could be completely off base.
Far too often,
You can go down the direction. Yeah, yeah, they go down the wrong direction a lot, often, and then they're out of scope.
Yes, far too often we could prescribe the wrong thing based on what we think would be a great idea. Oh, I saw this. I'm excited about this. Oh, this is something cool. And what could be helpful is, rather than just pushing your idea, is co-collaborating and saying, these are the different ideas we came up with. Which idea do we feel the most confident about, that would have the biggest impact, and that would be the best place to start first? So by working with them to see the different options and selecting the path that would be the best place to start, we'd be better than just assuming that you have a great solution that you're going to lead with. And then it's a co-authorship. They're seeing you as a partner in that endeavor. So
yeah, I know I think Jody, hopefully when he was on your podcast, talked about our sales process, but I think that's something that, in terms of our firm, that we're doing a really good job with. And I think, me and Jody and Adam are kind of our core salespeople. And I think what makes us good in that lane is that we are curious and we ask a lot of questions, and we've really tried to understand the problem and making sure we're a partnership in solving it, instead of just saying, like, instantly putting them into a box and be like, we know what your solution is, and it's this, and this is everybody's solution. And so I think that's important.
So we started off with fuel, then we went to get clarity with focus with the diagnostic, and we're prioritizing different ideas. If you try to look at everything at once, people can get overwhelmed. If you jump to the first thing, it might not be the right thing. So prioritizing the ideas with the client as a partner, and then it comes into a plan. I would know, just from my conversation with Jody, that you guys create a plan and it's documented. What I also know is a lot of agencies don't clearly map that out so that their clients can see what that plan is, and then they explain how it's working together as a partnership. Here's your responsibilities. Here's our responsibilities. Here's how we meet in the middle to come together to achieve this outcome. It's as simple as having a clearly documented plan that helps you internally. It also helps your client as well. And then, have you guys read the 4 Disciplines of Execution by any chance?
Yes, sir. I've read that one.
Yep.
All right. So that's the 5th stage, is really the execute stage. It's so important that it gets its own stage. It's really making sure that you have clarity on what the most important goal is, that you're taking actions that will influence and predict the result, you're measuring progress in a scorecard, and that you cultivate a cadence of accountability. And I think that accountability part, when working with agencies, is a level up. A lot of times when I'm working with firms, they say that one of the best values is to have a little bit of guidance, that plan, but also that level of accountability, what they can be doing on their end, how they can help make changes themselves. That's something that requires a conversation. It's not something that's just going to be pulled from an AI. You can really help people change by helping them be accountable and the changes they need to make on their side. What is your experience when you're working with people? You create a good plan for them, but they've got to be a partnership and they're not pulling their weight. How do you typically handle that?
Yeah, I think that this is something that we've recently, you've probably heard us talk about, is the maturity model. And I think that's why we developed the maturity model. Is a lot of times when we would go into our delivery and people's expectations were different than what we originally agreed to. And so I think when you do services like us, it is pretty complicated to make sure we're all on the same page. And so one of the first things we do is walk them through a maturity model and say, okay, here's where you're at. And here's where we want you to get by the end of onboarding. Here's where we want to get you at the end of the year. And it really allows us to define the path and what that looks like. And then it allows us to do exactly what you're saying, is like, in order to do that, we only have, see these 3 steps. We can help you with that. We can make sure you have these things. But in order to do that, we need to make sure we're getting these things done timely. And these are tons of importance. So we established that really quickly in onboarding, that our relationship only is going to work if we can get cooperation from everybody on your team. And that's really why we developed that maturity model, is because we'd go into onboarding so frequently and like their expectations were here and ours were here. And what they thought they were going to do was here. We knew they were going to have to do this. And so it allows us to like set that stage very early on in the process.
I think that's really mature. I'm a dad. I do dad jokes. It's okay. So stage number 6 is really quick. It's just really paying attention to that scorecard. A lot of times people, whether it's in the accounting firm or the marketing firm, they have dashboards. They have so many different analytics. It overwhelms people. It's really getting focused on what are the most important analytics that we're measuring that will have the most impact on what we're trying to achieve. And then making sure that you're not just looking at the numbers and saying that's what they are, but are we on track? Are we achieving our goals? If not, what do we need to do? What are the bottlenecks? What are the blind spots? What are the things that we need to improve in order to really move the needle and achieve the goal? I see that happen a lot where people will just have a lot of data, but they're not using it in an actionable way. So that's a way to improve. And then the final stage of this whole cycle is to step back and reflect. You know, we don't learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on experience. You go through a period of time. Some things will work, some things won't. Really taking the time to say, what have we learned? How can we make it better? It's the mindset of an amplifier to think about, how can I get better at this? Not, I've got this already. How can I get better at this? What is something that I can do to improve? And that is a little bit of that coaching culture that I talked about in the beginning that you can infuse into a team so that they're starting to see things through that lens.
Yeah, I love the use of the word amplify. I think that's like when we talked about the name of your company, obviously I was thinking about the Metallica story, but now you talked about like amplifying the thought process and always thinking about how to make things better. I really like that. And so appreciate the steps. I know that the book probably goes into a lot more details on each and every step, which I'm sure all our listeners will be jumping into now, but I'd love to kind of get to our fun question here. And you mentioned the Metallica, and I'm not going to give you the standard, what's your favorite concert question, because I've been through that a couple of times in the podcast. My question is going to be, what's the next concert? What concert are you hoping to attend someday, or wanting to see, or someone you've always wanted to see? So that's my question here. And so I'm going to start with Jody. Jody and I did recently go to a concert together at Red Rocks, which I know was a cool experience for him, but I'm curious, what's next for you, Jody?
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that. My next concert is on Friday, Lady Gaga in Miami.
Okay.
It'll be the third time, third watch of
Oh,
Lady
wow.
Gaga. So yeah, she never gets old. Love her music, love her style, love everything about it. But the music in general, I just love music. I was talking to at a dinner meeting yesterday with Tracy and Tom Barrett, and we were talking about the exact same thing. It's like I've seen the Eagles like 4 or 5 times at the Spear. I've seen U2 there. I've seen Kenny Chesney. I've seen really any kind of genre you can think of, from rap to heavy metal to country, you name it. And I always come out thinking, wow, that was pretty cool. There's only been a few times I've walked out thinking, wow, what happened? But but for the most part, it's like I just enjoy music in general, and so you can throw me at anybody, and whether I've heard them or not, which makes it nice. We have a nice concert that's down that we have down here called Tortuga in Fort Lauderdale, and they bring in all these different bands, and it's kind of funny because the bands, you may hear one hit from them, and that's it. And you'll walk in, and they'll put a pavilion. They probably got 5 or 6 bands going on at the same time, and you walk in, it's like, oh, that person actually has better music than their hits, than their star music. I love that person, love that music, but I never would have actually saw a concert with that person. I didn't know who they were. I just maybe heard one of their songs. And so, like I said, I'm super fan of all kinds of music. So sorry, Jay, for making that a long one there, but
No, I knew I did have a lot of for it. I know. All right, Kenny, what about you? What's the next show you're looking forward to, or what's the band that you've really wanted to see that you haven't had to see yet?
The one that got away was Nirvana. They even came close to me in high school. Almost went to him. Dad's like, "We'll get him the next time." It didn't work out that way.
Yeah.
Did get a bucket list concert last year. Weird Al Yankovic took the boys.
Oh yeah.
An amazing concert. Great time. Gotta plug it. But I'm actually intrigued to see Lady Gaga. She's an interesting artist, and I just really enjoy seeing kind of like interesting creative artists. So that just sparked my interest right there. Jody, thank you for the
for sure. Yeah, you'll enjoy it. She does a great concert. Yeah, she does. She's awesome. You won't be disappointed.
Never seen Lady Gaga. But I would say that the answer for me is I have an 18-year-old daughter, and as Jody knows, because she did attend the concert with us, like the last 2 years, live music has been her thing, and she spent pretty much this entire summer driving up to Denver, like every weekend, going and seeing different bands. And so it's kind of like when you watch a movie with your kid for the first time, you're like watching them instead of watching the movie because you want to see the reaction to certain things. Like that's kind of how it's been, is like her experiencing a lot of these bands that are back. And what she keeps telling me is, and Jody knows this answer, is like, she's like, Dad, we have to go see Pearl Jam together. And so that's the one that I want. And they're not touring yet, but when they tour next time, like even if they don't come to Colorado, she and I are going to find a way to go see them together, because I don't think there's a better live performer than Pearl Jam out there. So I want to see that with my daughter. But it's funny, you kind of mentioned the Nirvana one. Like that's to me too. Like that's the one that I regret. I never had a chance. I was kind of young, but like I would love to see Nirvana. And one of my hobbies right now, and one of the coolest things I'd recommend for both you guys, is the Unplugged concert they do at MTV. They sing that song "Where Did You Sleep Last Night," and like by the end, Kurt is like totally emotional and like giving everything he has. And they have those videos on YouTube where people watch people for the first time, and there's like 100 people watching that video. Like everyone's reaction when Kurt like gives at the end is like, what is going on? So that's my thing. I've probably watched like 30 of those videos lately where people watch Kurt Cobain sing that song and like lose it when he loses it. So that's been my new deep dive I've done lately. So I appreciate you bringing it up, Kurt, because that's been one of my obsessions lately. So
isn't it amazing on how they can unplug and how they can sing, and what great voices they have, and how they can just carry it without any music? Oh, it's just unreal. Yeah, I wish I could do that. I mean, you would hear me once, you'd never come back. But it would be.
That's true. I've seen you do karaoke. Awesome. So yeah, we're definitely at the end of the episode here. So Kenny, why don't you give us the final thought and plug how people can find you?
All right. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for the opportunity to share. I did have a final thought. It's an idea that I picked up from Brian Tracy, who's a really good thought leader, and I've coined it as systematic amplification. So we talked about the different stages. You can go to growthamplifiers.com/book, get a free copy of the book. I'm giving this information away because I want to help empower people to amplify. But the thought is, think about each different section that we walk through. You can listen to it and then rank how you feel like your business right now is showing up in each stage on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is, we don't even have that. We're not even doing that. To 10 is so awesome we couldn't possibly improve, 5 being about average. Then rather than trying to improve everything at once, pick one section and say, how can I move up? How can I level up? How can I turn up the volume? It's systematic amplification. You can continue to amplify, turn up the volume, continually get better, all the way to mastery. So that is the one thing I'd share. Everyone has the opportunity to amplify. Every day we get up is a blessing. Every day is an opportunity to turn up the volume, provide bigger impact to other people's lives. So thank you very much. growthamplifiers.com/book.
Awesome. Great job. Appreciate you. That was fun.
Yeah, this has been great overall. I love it.